Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Just Two Dads, along with my co-host and my partner, Mr. Shawn Francis. I'm Brian Altunian, and today we're going to be talking about things that are important to all of us. Shawn and I are talking about our own advancing ages, talking about items like mortality and having a good quality of life. Just the two of us today, just two dads, no guests today, so stay tuned. Please engage in the conversation here with us. Here we go, Just Two Dads. Hello again, everybody. I am Brian Altunian along with Shawn Francis. We are co-hosts of Just Two Dads. We've been doing this now for over 2 years. We're at episode number 113, I believe. 113. I don't know. I never know. I should know ahead of time, and yet I don't know. So if you're joining us, thank you. It's really silly. If you're catching us on Facebook Live, please leave comments. Let us know if there's anything that you'd like us to add or consider or throw in there as well to the conversation. Add the conversation. We'll put your comments up on the screen. If you're catching us after the fact on our We Are Just Two Dads YouTube page, welcome. Please subscribe, share with your friends, share with folks that you know, especially if the content's compelling and if it's interesting and it's valuable and it applies. For those of you hearing us on podcast outlets all over the place, welcome. Again, we hope that you will reach out to us. Send us an email at wearejusttwodads, all one word, wearejusttwodads@gmail.com. Makes it fairly easy. And for those listening at WSTX AM radio down to the U.S. Virgin Islands, hello. And I don't know now, Shawn, you're going to have to teach me some sort of Virgin Islands greeting that I can properly greet our folks.
I will do that. I'll do that. I'll do that. That's a good idea.
All right, so why don't we jump? Yeah, right. Why don't we jump into it and kind of get into this conversation about mortality? For those, I know we both look fairly young, but I have a birthday coming up in less than a month.
You sure do.
I'll be 59, which is kind of crazy. And that's like pushing 60, right?
It is pushing 60. Speaking of which, just the idea of growth and everything, you mentioned we've been doing this for 2 years. When we first started doing this, we didn't think, how can we do a podcast and then maybe we can make money off of that. We didn't even think of that at all, but things evolve, people approach us, and organic conversations take place. And our first affiliate deal or sponsor is with an amazing company by the name of Billy Footwear. The founder of that company, the co-founder, Billy Price, has been a guest on our show. And just real quick, Billy, at the age of 18, 2 weeks into his freshman year in college, fell out of a window and broke his neck and became paralyzed from the chest down and had to learn how to live all over again. And some of today's topic is born from our conversations with him as well, in terms of somebody just maximizing the most out of life. But he was able to do everything for himself with the exception of putting his shoes on. I had a friend that created a prototype for him. And the whole idea was, well, if I have this gift of independence, let's create a company where we give that gift to others. And what was born was Billy Footwear. And the shoes come with a zipper, which allows anyone with limited mobility to be able to put the shoes on. But right now, if you utilize the link that we have on the screen for Billy Footwear, you can actually get 10% off of your purchase. And what's really cool is that starting tomorrow, and I don't want to butcher it and give the wrong date, but throughout a portion of the month of November, but starting tomorrow, they're actually going to have a sale where they will have 50% off certain items. And so if you got that, as well as the Just Two Dads discount, that's 60% off of great items, because they're not just functional shoes. They're actually very cool looking, and the cause is very, very worthy. So as we get into today's topic, I think that there's a lot of connectivity taking place in the universe as well, because our reason for being on WSTX is because of my good friend and former classmate from fourth grade, believe it or not, Mr. Robert Moorhead. And I'm glad that he's tuned in today. Love to see him joining us. So, and Brian, you see the greeting is right there. It's not too far from Jamaica. So there you go. We'll go on.
What's going on? What's going on?
There you go. Yeah.
I love it.
So anyway, well, let's get into what is going on.
Robert,
going
thanks for the comment. So Robert says, I don't look a day over 20. The gray in my my goatee probably belies that a little bit. But thanks, Robert. Great to have you. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us. And really, it was Robert's because of Robert's support that we were actually down on WSTX AM radio. So thank you so much, definitely. Robert. Really, appreciate your support as always. And all the folks who have jumped in and, been part of this podcast for the last 2.5 years, just people who have, tuned into various of my friend, Carrie Lynn was just commenting. Of course, our producer, Sean Hall in Hawaii has been a very big piece of what we're doing. We couldn't do this without Sean. So just excited to have the people around us. My daughter, Jo Jordan, she jumps into quite a bit. Our friend, Susanna. We have a lot of folks that we have developed friendships after being involved with us in this show that have turned into lifelong friendships and great relationships. So we will thank everybody for that, and that's a blessing. No matter what, if nothing else happens from this podcast, just the inclusion of these folks in our lives has improved the quality of our individual lives. So we thank you. Your lighting looks fantastic today, Sean. Mine looks terrible, but I'm just acknowledging how beautiful you look today and how terrible I look today. All right. So also, it's one of those mornings already. So Sean, let's go. You wanted to talk about this topic, which I love. And so talk about how this came about and why you wanted to talk about issues of mortality.
Well, it's interesting because I'll go back a bit. When I was growing up, my dad is an optimist and a realist, Raymond Francis Sr. I'm eternally grateful to him for his example and his love and support. And when I was a kid, he's so much of a realist. He was always a product of personal development. And he would say to me, we're not going to be here forever. Your grandmother's not going to be here forever. You need to make sure you let her know that, that you love her, like while she's here. And then see, every day we're closer to, dying. One day I'm not going to be here. And I'm like, dude, I am trying to watch Scooby-Doo. That is just too heavy and too deep. I'm talking about, I'm like, I don't know, 10, 11 years old. And, I have no memory of my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, because he died when I was, I don't know, I think it was maybe like 2 or 3. And I know that had to affect my dad. And so he was just looking at making the most out of life. And so I don't think that was the reason for it. But when my great grandmother passed away, I was 13. That was my mother's grandmother. And from between her passing and a fellow classmate by the name of Alan Schwartz, God rest his soul, who passed away from leukemia. That really freaked me out. It's the first time I knew anybody close to me, and that passed away. And I developed a fear of death as a result of that. As a kid, for a while, I had trouble sleeping and that kind of just like, ugh, and I think it's part of the reason why I have empathy for people that don't face certainties, because they rather just act like it's not there, even if it's something that has to be faced, whether it's taking care of your health, generally speaking, or just, dealing with money or any kind of problem, avoidance, so to speak. But what I've come to realize is that because our departure is not something that may take place, but is in fact an eventuality, there is such a gift, and want to make sure that we say this from the beginning, there is such a gift in accepting it and making the most out of the life that you have, and such great joy that can be found if that is done, so that you avoid any of the following 2 things take place. Having regret, because they say that most people don't fear death. What they really fear is having not lived a full life. Okay, so in other words, you're just thinking of all the things that you didn't do. And then from a spiritual standpoint, of course, as a lot of people get closer to mortality, or, they get closer to departure, they find Jesus, Jah, Yahweh, and Allah, and because they just start thinking of everything else.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, for me personally, I question faith a lot when I see some of the stuff that takes place in the world. But at the same time, I think I'd rather live my life as though there is a God, and upon departure find out if I have any consciousness that there is not one, than to have lived your life as though there is not one, and then upon departure finding out that, gosh, it's really real. Hey, can I go back and do the right thing? But what's got me thinking about it a little more recently is that I've seen certain people in various age groups, pass away. And then I think of certain people, artists whose work has been like cornerstones of our lives, that are no longer with us, or seeing them age. And for me, some of those people, like Sidney Poitier passed away this past year. I saw an article with Jane Fonda the other day. She's about to turn 85, and she just said outright she's accepted the fact that she's not going to be here much longer. And that just kind of, when you think of those words, so I think that there's something to be said for trying to have the greatest quality out of life. And then when you're tasked with being a caregiver to one with special needs, depending on the diagnosis, how severe it is, what the challenges may be like, and whether or not you're blessed with a spouse or partner, making the most out of the life that you have can be, pretty, in some cases that can be pretty daunting. But I'd like for anybody that's listening to know that you're not alone. I think we all have the same fears and concerns. And so those things are on my mind.
Well, listen, I think for people who have never, who maybe the first time they're tuning in and just listen to us talk. Actually, this is how our podcast started. It was just the kinds of things that fascinate Shawn and I, and become subjects of conversation that we just wanted to, that are of interest to us because of our common, the common bond that we both have children with special needs issues. It just opened the door for us to have conversations about this. So these are the kinds of things that we talk about: real life, real world examples of things that that strike a nerve. And here's the thing: the fact that we call this Just Two Dads. Men's groups. There's a lot of folks that have men's groups. We've talked about starting a men's group as well, but men's groups are trying to encourage men to be open to sharing the kinds of things that are important to them, that they society has sort of dictated that they keep to themselves, not share, don't provide vulnerability, all that type of stuff. And the reality is, a lot of the things in the world are universal in how we experience them. It's just how we share them with the world. That's the difference, right? We all experience fear. We all experience anxiety. We all experience, things like depression and, and concern over the future and, all of those things, survival. And it's just, how do we express them? A lot of men tend to repress or hold those things in and don't share those things. So these are kind of conversations that Shawn and I have been having for 6 or 7 years. And it's why we started this podcast, so we can have this conversation. In the actuality, a lot of it is to bring folks on as our guests and talk about some of these issues that deal with, that we deal with in our special needs community, and there are people who help to serve and service those needs. And so the intent of creating the podcast was to provide a platform for them, but to be able to have these kinds of conversations that sometimes men don't like to have or shy away from. And we're not shy. We're emotional beings. We put ourselves out there on this podcast, and we're not afraid to express, those things that are concerning to us. So the idea of, of mortality, what Shawn says all the time, tomorrow is many things, but a promise is not one of them, right? So tomorrow's never promised to any of us. We don't know when it's going to happen. We're seeing, if you're looking at headlines, there are folks that are passing away from a whole variety of things at a whole bunch of different ages. It's not guaranteed that you're going to live into your 80s and 90s anymore, for a whole bunch of reasons. And I think that it's an important thing to have the conversation. Like, what happens? It's amazing. We work our lives. We work. We work to achieve some sort of goal, and they call it the rat race for a reason. It's as if we are on a race to something that's not really a very clear. If you ever watched a rat in a maze, searching for food, they don't know that the maze is a puzzle that was established by humans. They just know that they're looking for their goal, and it's at some point in the future. The rat race that many find themselves in working in a job and trying to achieve and accomplish and provide for their families. There's a lot of like, I'm just going and going and going. And we talk about this in the world of life insurance all the time, because a lot of times we'll hear from people like, oh, I have life insurance through my job, so I'm covered. And it reminds me of the rat race, because I always say, oh, well, that's great if you're planning on dying at your desk. If you're planning on dying at work, then your family will be covered. But isn't it crazy that that's sort of now ingrained in the minds of many folks who work in jobs like, oh, I've got life insurance in case I die at work. It's as if, because I'm going to die at work. What a horrible way to think about your life. And so, as we get, as we age and seems like we're closer to the end than we are to the beginning, these are the kinds of conversations that, that are important. I'm glad you brought it up as something to talk about today, because we deal with it in the insurance, in the financial services. We deal with a lot of insurance issues and requirements, and a lot of folks aren't really thinking about what happens to their family should they pass away. Special needs families, that's a really, very big need. It's a very big issue, and they still, it's a priority that's very far down the list. So, we talk about it, a mortality. And in fact, insurance companies price their insurance products based on actuarial tables that are on mortality. The likelihood of mortality at a certain age, the likelihood of mortality for a certain cause. If you smoke tobacco, your likelihood of mortality is going to be much closer. You're much closer to it than if you didn't smoke, for example. So these are the kinds of things that we talk about on a professional level as we deal with families. But on a personal level, as we're aging and we're thinking about what we're doing with our lives and where we're committing our time and effort, this is an important topic for us to talk about too, because I think, Shawn, you would agree. We all talk about this a lot. People want to be of significance. They want to be of contribution. They want to leave behind. I always think of mortality as, did you leave the world a better place than you found it, when you go?
That's the best thing. The best, right? That's the best way to. So if anybody's sitting over there thinking like, oh my gosh, this is just, what a subject. And take it from me, again, someone who had this fear of death and say, oh my gosh, really? There's going to come a time when I exist in memory only. Well, there's several things. The best way to deal with that or embrace it is by not getting ready to go anyplace, but by thinking, okay, what is it that would really, really fulfill you? Like really stop and think about it. When you're a kid, you have good confusion in that I want to be an astronaut. I want to be an actor. I want to be, because children don't have limits. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be an Oscar-winning actor. I want to be president of the United States, a doctor, and a firefighter. There's always a handful of things.
Right.
To which we then tell the child, well, you probably have to pick and choose. So sky's the limit. You don't have any limitations on your thoughts. Then as you get a little older, you go from good confusion to bad confusion because you're essentially inert. You're like, well, what is it that you really want to do? I don't know. Or you may have that, you either have that goal and dream that you think about last thing before you go to bed, first thing you get up in the morning, and maybe don't tell anybody about. Or the worst case scenario is that you don't tell anyone at all, which is why they say that the most wonderful pieces of art, the greatest inventions, the best ideas, the most moving speeches or sonnets haven't been heard. They're in the cemetery because most people die with their greatest songs still within them. And, and I know that for myself personally, it's another story, but I literally have songs that are still within me, and some of them are literal, some of them are, are figurative. And, we could go in a whole bunch of different directions here, because my best friend is also my greatest enemy, which is me, and by that, I mean that you
Sure.
think of like, how do you make the most out of each day? I get distracted easily,
Yeah. Well, I'll share this, and I may have told you about this before, but I'm sure I have, because I do share this. For anybody who's listening or watching, I had a dream several years ago where I had died of a heart attack. And at the time I was married, and we were going through a very stressful time. I had a public company. The stock market was, doing its typical, gyrations. And I was stressed out and arguing, I think, with with everybody at the time. I had a dream that I had died of a heart attack, which I hear is you're not supposed to die in your dreams, right? Some things happens. If anybody has a comment about that, I'd love to hear what your comment is about the idea of dying in your dreams. But for me, when I died, I woke up in my dream. I woke up with the knowledge that I had died. I died of a heart attack, by the way, surprise, because I was stressed out. And then I ended up, I must have been watching a lot of Breaking Bad, because I was in like Saul Goodman's waiting room. That's like that old 1970s strip mall with the fake wood paneling on the side, and that's where I woke up in my dream. I woke up in the waiting area, and at the time, because I felt like I'm a type A personality, I'm like, okay, where do I go? Like, do I go over here? Do I go over there? Where do I go? What am I doing? Where am I going? And so the message I got in my dream was, well, you're not going on, you're going back, right? You're going back, and you need to gather your friends and family. And in my dream, I was envisioning standing up on a pedestal and having all my friends and family around me in a big circle. And the message was, you need to tell your friends and family that everybody has a purpose, a specific purpose in life. You're here for one reason. You're doing something, and you know what it is, but the fights, the arguments, the stress, the anxiety, all of that stuff is nothing but a distraction. It's distracting you from your main purpose. Why are you here? What's your main purpose for being here? And you've got to stop allowing that stuff to distract you. And just so you know, like, I'm the guy that, like, if I'm deep into a book, that's like that's like a suspense book, I want to kind of read forward, and I want to see where it's going, just so that I don't know why I like to read the end. So I'm like, I have no patience. In my dream, I said, tell me what my main purpose is, because I don't know what it is. And this was not that long ago. I was probably in my mid 40s when this happened, maybe early 40s. And I said, I don't know what my main purpose is. How about that? First of all, just that as an admission, I didn't know what my main purpose was. And the message I got out of that was, your main purpose is to connect people. And I woke up immediately after getting that message. Your purpose is to connect people. And I woke up, and I was angry at first, because I thought, oh my gosh, like, why did I wake up? Because I needed to know more. And the second, like, how do I make a living out of, like, what does that mean? Connect people. Yes, I make introductions to people all the time, but I don't really know what that means. And I was frustrated. And like Shawn said, I didn't tell anybody about that dream for a while, that I was angry, and I was just sort of sitting with it. I got a friend who reached out to me about 2 years later, and she was like, hey, she lives in Orange County, Southern California. So I'm going to be up in Los Angeles. Let's get together. And so we got together, and, we were just chatting. And then I said to her, before I said it to her, I started to tell her about my dream. And she said, what's wrong with you? Like, you are of the select few people who got sort of a divine message that you have you got a message why you're here on the planet. And I thought, yeah, but I don't know what to do with it. She's like, well, stop thinking about what there is to do, and, be that. And by the way, I am that. For anybody who knows me, I like to connect people. I introduced my older brother to his wife, actually his first and his second wife, as well as his girlfriend. I've made introductions to people who have gotten together, have gotten married, have children still together. I've introduced people to job opportunities. I've connected people, a lot. That's just a natural way that my brain thinks. So of course that would be my thing. and she said, you've got to pay attention to that, because that means something. And in the course of the conversation, I said, why are you here? Like, why are you here in Los Angeles today? And she said, I don't know. I had an inkling that I was supposed to come up and see you today. And I truly believe that her reason for being there was to tell me to pay attention to this dream, that she got some sort of message, that, some sort of God nudge, or whatever you want to call it, to help me see the clarity of that. And so, I think about that all the time, that, we all have some reason for being here. And the worst thing is to go, like you said, the worst thing is to go and, like, on your deathbed, in that nanosecond before you pass and cross over, that you go, oh my gosh, that's what I was supposed to do with my life. Oh, I should have been doing this thing my whole life, to get it at the last minute. The benefit is to figure out what your true purpose is while you're alive, and apply it, now while you can. I've thought about this dream a lot over the last year or two. And I've actually realized that the message was not just to connect people, but also to connect with people. And so that's a part of how I try to live my life, connected and connecting with folks. I say to you as you're typing away on your keyboard.
I'm responding to Emily Grant, who did a couple great words there. It's interesting because growing up, for me, I had somewhat of an aspiration of being an actor, but more in music. I wanted to have, like, #1 songs on the charts. I wanted to fill arenas and perform and all that kind of stuff. But if I had found a way to make $1, like even half a penny for every time I wondered what other people thought of me, oh my gosh, the world would not have any financial issues. Because I never stepped right outside of that. But I dabbled, had a couple demos here and there, and didn't, get a record deal or anything like that. But, in the 80s, I moved to Minneapolis, and I had an opportunity to work on a couple projects of Prince's, and be around, Prince and his work and all that kind of stuff. And I've seen a lot of other people achieve the highest of highs, in entertainment. And I often wonder, like, if I had those dreams come true, I don't know where I would necessarily be today. I don't know if I would have survived the success. But aside from my genuine love of music, the love of creating something that will outlive me, the love of having the type of effect on someone and their day and their spirit and their energy that my heroes, whether it's Prince, Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, whoever, have had upon me, outside of a musical aspect, I realize that what I enjoy is leaving a room and people feeling like, I'm glad that he was here for, 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Making a difference, making anything around you, better than you left it. And I never thought that that could take place with that financial services would be like some kind of seed for something like that. But it's become that, and it really is just a seed. So it's an evolving thing. So for me, it's like you said, and that's one of the reasons why we're connected, because we like being able to be the person. Does anybody know a good plumber? Do I ever?
Yeah.
It is just such a feeling of that, of adding value to people. Like you hear me say so many times, in the words of the great Muhammad Ali, service to others is the rent we pay for our room on earth. And when you leave the room that is the proverbial planet, you want to make sure that people, what? He was here. Like, for instance, my grandfather, who I told you I have no memory of, right? That man continues to impact people to this day that have no idea who he was. And, he didn't, not only did he not finish high school, he didn't make it to high school. He nor my grandmother, but they had a Chrysler dealership. They had a local restaurant or pool hall. They had different businesses, and they impacted lives of anybody that was in their path. And that's what I aspire to do and be. And I think that each of us has such we're capable of being that in so many more ways than we realize. And once you feel good about the space that you're taking up, because I made a post earlier on social media talking about, the present is the only thing that we really have. And most of us live a portion of our life either worried about or yearning for yesterday, and then worrisome about the future. And the chances are you're probably going to wake up tomorrow. The chances are most definite that tomorrow, that yesterday is not coming back. So the only thing that's really right there is what's in front of you. And what we do today is really what tomorrow is made of. So there's something to be said for keeping the eye on on the future, but there's a measurable value in us being as present as we possibly can be. And it's a constant struggle, but one that's worth overcoming.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree. As we get, as we get towards the closer to the end, and I think this happens a lot. A lot of folks talk about their parents and how intense their parents were, and then how softened they seem to get as they get older. Partially, by the way, it's biological, because our hormones change as we get older. But partially, it's because as we look to the end and what we've done in our past, making the last days of our lives, however long that is, make them count, make them mean something, make them count for something, maybe inspire greatness in others, whatever that is. It becomes a goal of ours to make the last days of our lives powerful and meaningful. So again, I think it's an interesting conversation again. And by the way, it's we're seeing tragedy in the world, still coming out of the pandemic. Some people, not to get political, some people think the vaccines were helpful. Some think that the vaccines were purposeful in causing illness and death. I think we're seeing people who are dying in their 20s and 30s and 40s of conditions that usually were reserved for folks who are older. That's odd and sad, but we're also seeing tragedy. Like if you saw in two universities this week, in the University of Virginia and the University of Idaho, we've had people taking the lives of their students, their classmates. Really, really tragic things that are occurring, and then partially it's this pressure, the economy, how people feel about their hope. Some cases it's hopelessness, and then they take it out on others. There's a lot of things to be again grateful for as we look to our lives, but also know that a lot of people don't have the same benefits that we have. So it's almost imperative that we all take advantage of the time that we've got and do something meaningful with our lives. Figure out what your purpose is in life. Think about how impactful you can be. Make a difference in somebody else's life. You never know what that, as you said, maybe there are, great songs that are in people's minds, and ideas and business ideas and, revolutionary things that could actually make the world a better place. We spend a lot of time working on things that make the world not a great place. It's time that we start focusing on how we can make the world better. And that's, and that, again, it goes across the board. And even then for our special needs families, what can we do to make sure that that our children are always seen as having the full capability of contributing to society with, and luckily there are great things to, and again, ills of social media aside, thanks to social media, there's a lot of stuff that can be found. Find some great stories out there on social media about some of our kiddos who have special needs issues that are doing amazing things, and making a huge difference in the world. And it hopefully changes that mindset of, and I think the mindset has shifted of our kiddos who have some special needs issues. They can be meaningful contributors to society, and in fact, in some ways, even greater, because their focus is on the things that light them up and light up the world. So we're parents of children who have special needs issues. Sometimes we get caught up in being distraught and being concerned and thinking, are our kids ever going to make it to the next level, live independently, and all those kinds of things, when the reality is Some of our kids are gonna do amazing things in the world. There's no limitation to what our kids can do.
Yeah, well, what they do, they tend to do is, again, it's perspective. Because again, like I said, I do battle with myself. I catch moments of impatience, and then I'm also taught by my son. And I think my wife is better at it than I am. I don't think she is. Where we're reminded of what is it that's really, really important. So when you talk about not just mortality, but let's move away from that and just the idea now in the second half of our hour, which is making the most out of what you've got. And a lot of that has to do with, keeping our eyes on the things that is, that are the very, very most important, because those are things that get distorted so very often. There's a song it's called Jump for Joy. It's a song by the Jacksons, and it's written by, I believe, Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff, and it says, people have misunderstandings about what life is all about. They put values on the wrong things, and in happiness, they lose out. I mean, that's just, it's so simple that it's almost startling. And it kind of takes me to the question that we generally will ask our guests at the end of the show, which is our ability to make the world a better place is, tied in some way, great or small, on our willingness or ability to change ourselves. And so then we ask them to give an example of a thought or belief that they once held dear and believe strongly and no longer believe to be true. And it's interesting, once upon a time, I thought of suicide as a very selfish thing. And I had a cousin I knew that committed suicide, and I know other people that have experienced, friends and family members that have done the same. And in my quest to try and always step into other people's shoes and never wear just my own, I've come to realize that not only is it not selfish, but it is people are not of the right mind because of the level of pain that they're going through. So the other thing that I've learned in looking at that stuff is that they say that a lot of people that attempt suicide and fail to do so end up regretting their attempt once they've done so. So what that makes me think of is the impact that we have upon other people by stopping to, not just check in on friends and see how people are doing, but as you're going about your business, there's a lot of value in just raising consciousness. So making sure that you don't just go about your business and, just pass people. Sometimes I'll catch myself as I walk by someone and my hello is like barely audible. I'll like maybe nod the head and hi, or like just mouth it. And as they walk by, I'm like, I could have said that louder. I could have, and I don't know if I'll ever get to the point where the consciousness is at a point of satisfaction. But if I'm aware of what I'm thinking about and what I do as I go about my way, those things take place. I think I might have mentioned this on a previous episode. I was walking towards my son's class one day to pick him up. So I'm walking up the sidewalk on the side of the school, and I hear, "Sir, excuse me, sir," and I'm like, still weird when people call you sir. I'm like, because part of you is still a kid, right?
Yeah.
So I'm hearing here, sir, excuse me. And I look, and there's a lady in a truck. She's parked on the side by the sidewalk. So I come to the window. I said, yes. And she goes, I just wanted to tell you, your son, I see you with him. Like when you drop him off and you pick him up, I see your interaction with him. And it's just so inspiring. And he is just such an inspiration. My daughter, or my niece and I, my niece goes to the same school, and she sees him, and sometimes she'll come home, or she'll come to the car when I pick her up, and she goes, "Oh, I saw him today," and just the way he carries himself. And so I'm saying all that to say that when you do what you do and you're just being you, didn't mean for that to rhyme, but when you're doing those things, you have no idea what kind of impact your day-to-day activity has upon somebody. So sure. So from a figurative standpoint, if you dare to sing a song, you have no idea who's quietly not only singing along with you, but so glad that you chose to sing it.
It's a good story.
Yeah. I mean, you never know. And that was the first thing that it did for me. I just told her, I was like, thank you. So now I still catch myself in the middle of a bad day. But I still always say, man, my biggest problems are somebody else's. Our biggest nightmares are somebody else's dreams. I know it is. And sometimes that's tough to forget, but we always have to, tough to remember, but we always have to make sure that we keep the consciousness up so that we remember those things.
So it's to your point. This is an old friend of mine who I haven't talked to in a long time. And we have missed each other, I think, over the course of the years. And hello, Michael. I do miss you, Michael. I do want to talk to you. But it is great. You have no idea who's paying attention, who's watching, I'm always amazed when people will send me a note saying, hey, I heard the podcast the other day and I thought that guest was amazing, but I'm like, I have no idea that you even knew I had a podcast to some degree. Right. So it is nice to know that there are people that are in your life and pay attention. It just shows you that, everybody has the ability to have an impact on other folks. And we don't know, by the way, good and bad, right? There are enough videos out there of people who are been labeled Karens or whatever because their behavior has been, somewhat horrific, in a particular example. So you don't know how your life and the activities that you take on can affect and impact other people. I have this lovely lady here. I want to share, just want to say hello to her, because this is Jordan has been. This is my daughter Jordan. Jordan has been on. First of all, she's been on our program several times. Jordan had some learning disabilities growing up, had an IEP for most of her life, and but always wanted to help people. She was always wanted to be helpful. Always talked about wanting to be a teacher, and today, and by the way, we've told the story many, many times. So for those of you who have heard it before, I'll just briefly repeat. Our neurologist, when she was very young, told her all the things that she couldn't do. She couldn't have a job, couldn't live alone, couldn't drive a car, couldn't, all these things that we call it they can't. There you go. I don't know. Did I do that by? There we go. That they can't date. They can't date. And the reality is that Jordan has surpassed all of those things and lives in upstate New York, is married, has a stepson, and is a teacher today, and teaches in a middle school classroom as really as a full sub, but she's got like full control of her classes, and so she's gone on to do amazing things. We're a huge supporter of what we do here, but again, the impact, her willingness to want to make a difference in people's lives, her free spirit. She's just got such a lovely attitude about the world, and to see her wanting to have an impact on other kids and share her experience. And we've talked about this before, Shawn. One of our mentors, Ed Milet, had a speech that we listened to recently where he talked about those things that we think that the challenges that we face in our own lives are actually those challenges actually qualify us to make a difference in the lives of other people who are struggling with the same challenges. So where we think
a guest on his show, yeah,
we think that we're disqualified by the challenges that we face or the limitations that we have or that we sometimes impose on ourselves, when the reality is those exact limitations are the things that enable us to have a perspective that make a difference in the lives of other people. And so for Jordan to be able to go on and be a teacher and make a difference in the lives of students in in her area of New York, it's such a huge sense of pride for me, and I know it's a sense of pride for you as well, Shawn, because you, for the last 6-7 years, you've had many interactions with Jordan and have been very impactful in her advancement and development. And so
thank you.
We're
a lot to me. Yeah,
we're grateful for all of that. So it's interesting.
And it's funny, it's because and for some people that may struggle with that, especially if there's a challenge that you have and you're thinking, how could I ever help people with problem A when that's my problem? If you had a trainer, right, a physical a personal trainer that was overweight you might not feel the best about taking information, training or instruction from them because they're not in the best shape. If they're in great shape and they appear to be, right, physically, then you'd feel better about that. Now, if you found out that despite the fact that they're in great shape now, they once upon a time were overweight themselves, there's even a higher level of credibility there. So like Brian was saying, the person that you were gives the most qualification to help others that have the very same problem. So that's another way of saying that, sometimes the things that are taking place in your life are happening for you versus to you. And depending on what it is and what your perspective is, that might be kind of hard to see because you think, Bill, why would anybody wish this upon anyone else? But the truth of the matter is, when anything is placed upon us in terms of adversity, it's worthwhile to stop and ask, okay, even if you throw your hands up in the air, but the question is as valuable as it is powerful, which is, okay, like, what is the value in this? Why is this taking place? And you can ask that question in a manner that serves you as well as one that is to your detriment. You can be like, great, why is this crap taking place? And that's usually to your detriment, even though it's understandable. But if you literally stop and try and look and like, okay, why is this taking place? What is the benefit? Because, like Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, says, with every adversity, there is a seed of equal or greater value. If, and in this case, if is a 50-letter word, if we look for it.
Right.
Tough to do, but worthwhile.
Yeah. Sometimes we don't see the purpose of it. And yet it seems to be the thing that, it's always easy to go to be able to look back on and go, oh, I know why that. Oh, now I understand why that happened. But when you're in the middle of it, you're like, what's my lesson here? I remember I've asked myself that question out loud, like, okay, so what am I supposed to be learning about this? And if this is the same situation that I've had before, am I supposed to approach it differently this time? Because obviously I didn't learn anything the last time that I encountered this.
Right.
Like, what's right? Why now? Like, why is this happening again? Or why am I still going through this? Are you continuing to test my resolve? Do I need to jump through hoops again? Like, a lot of times we get stuck in that mode. And by the way, a lot of people, I think, get stuck in that mode on a regular, continuous basis. And that's why they turn around and then they're, 59 years old and going, what am I doing? What did I do with my life? I spent it all jumping through hoops as opposed to living it fully.
Right. And it's funny because, like, I love sports. You and I talk sports.
Yeah.
I'm at a stage in my life where I still enjoy them, but I enjoy them differently. There's part of me that feels like, you know what? There's going to come a time where every person on this planet isn't here anymore. So what difference does it make who wins the game? Like, does it really, really matter? Right?
Yeah.
But then at the same time, what I do is I look for the life lesson in almost every sport. Like, you have this certain teams that just kind of like bug you. And you're like, why do I not like that team? Why do I not like that athlete? There's they're just going about their business. What is the reason for that? So if we just keep asking ourselves questions and remain more childlike and less childish, it continues to serve us.
Yeah.
But the one thing is that anybody can beat anyone on a given day. And really, sports are just a mirror of life and so much more of a mental and emotional thing than it is physical. Like, if you stop and think of what it takes to get from point A to point B in order to be successful, in a sport, because there are a bunch of people with mad athletic skills and gifts that nobody's ever going to know about, because the balance between the athletic gift versus the mental fortitude is completely out of whack. But the same thing, I'm telling you, this is why, like, when I was a kid, I was crazy about Julius Erving, right? But it was pretty much because of what he did on the court. What he did off the court looked cool in terms of the way he carried himself and everything, but I didn't have an appreciation for what it took mentally to get there. And I got that from my admiration years later for someone like the late Kobe Bryant. And the truth of the matter is, whatever Tom Brady or whoever does, as great as they are at their given sport and their talent, you could be that great in other areas of your own life if you just put in the time to do that, because those are people that have both talent and then work ethic. And not only that, the game of life is the most valuable sport anyway. And when you're following your goals and dreams and you're adding value to other people, that's where that's where you're winning.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I think the thing I love about sports is because it applies to life. And you see somebody like, Kobe Bryant and Tom Brady, and, they carry themselves at a different level from the perspective of athleticism. The interesting thing about that is that we've met people in business who have the same kind of attitude. And the attitude is more or less like, I'm going to share with you everything that I know, because I know two things. One is, you're never going to work as hard as I do. I work hard. And by the way, there are some people in life that are like, yeah, man, I'm as good as Kobe Bryant athletically, but I'm just not as committed to that as
to the greatness.
Yeah. The other thing some people say is, I'm going to share all the secrets so that, when I beat you at this game, I'm playing somebody at the height of their ability. So I want you to be at the height of the ability. Nobody wants to win over, a game over a doormat. I hate to say it that way, but you know what I mean?
Right.
A competitor wants to compete against good competition. They don't want to compete against, somebody who's just, I'm not that good, so I'm not going to try that hard, right? No. Here, let me show you how to do this. So now let's compete, because you're going to make me better. I'm going to make you better. Let's compete together. But by the way, that's applied. We see that in business too. We have a colleague that works really, really hard. He's up at 6 a.m, doesn't go to bed till 2 a.m, and is going all day, and has had great success. And as much as I would love to have the level of success that person has, I also know I don't want to do that. That's at my age, at my point in my life, and all the things that I've done in my life. I don't want to do that. That's a conscious choice. There are conscious folks playing basketball against Kobe Bryant, against Michael Jordan, against Julius Erving. They're good, and they commit to this. And I'm good, but I don't want to make the same commitment. I just know that I don't want to make that same level of commitment. It's not in me, not part of who I am. That's okay, right? So all I'm saying, I hope
everybody catches that too. That's another thing. To the line between the following things can get blurred, which is copping out and being lazy versus, knowing exactly who you are and who you aren't, and being quote unquote really truly in your lane. Sometimes that can be used as an excuse to stay within mediocrity, but there's something to be said for not doing that, but truly knowing this is what I want to do and this is what's going to fulfill me. That is not going to. That is one of the biggest keys to making sure that you're making the most out of the life that you have and have been given. Wow, look at where we are.
I know this. These. By the way, for anybody who's again catching us for the first time, this is usually what used to happen to Shawn and I. Would be on the phone and having a conversation. We'd go on, and then we go, an hour has gone by. We got to get to work. Let's go do some stuff, because it goes by quickly.
Yes.
So listen, at the end of the day, for folks, a conversation about mortality and living a good quality life, it's something that we all should be not fearing the discussion, but engaging in, so that we, help to hold each other accountable to have the life that we want to have. Again, I don't necessarily need to live my life, like Kobe Bryant practiced his profession, but the impact that I want to have, if it's just as powerful as what Kobe, the impact that Kobe had, I'd like to have that happen. So for me, there's a reason for me to, keep pushing myself to be better and out there, and to follow my true purpose, which is to connect with people. So I'm going to pursue that. And as we wrap this episode of Just Two Dads, I'll do my little sign off, and then you can give your parting words and your sign off. And thank you, Taniqua, and thank you, Robert, for the suggestion. We definitely will reach out and have that conversation. And everybody who contributed today, thank you so much. We love to again engage with you and share things that are topics that are of importance to you, conversations, especially for those who have families with special needs, children or special needs family members. The special needs community is growing, and it's one that we are all going to be a part of at some point in our lives. So the topics that we cover a lot of things. They transcend special needs issues, but it's the human condition that we always talk about. So thank you for listening. on podcast outlets and WSTXM AM radio down in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And for those catching us live on Facebook, thank you. Thanks for everybody for contributing. Joe, as always, Michael, Taniqua, Amity, all those folks who shared today. We appreciate that. It's always nice when we don't have a guest that we know that the conversation is engaging topic anyways. And catch us every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time on our Facebook channel or after the fact on YouTube. And I always say, first of all, I'm going to say thank you to Sean Hall. Sean Hall is our producer out in Hawaii. He does our graphics. He gets us up on all these outlets and to make sure that we do the things that we say we're going to do. Billy Footwear, don't forget Billy Footwear. It's an amazing he as a guest, his story is so amazing. I encourage you, if you didn't see the episode, to go back to our YouTube channel and look up. Actually, we had 2 episodes, one last November, one the other day, last week, and it was so amazing. They've sold 1 million pairs of shoes. The shoes are incredible quality, and they're for all ages and all walks of life, and they're incredible, especially for folks who have challenges putting their shoes on. Billy has solved that problem. So we go to Billy Footwear. The link is here in the chat, and save 60% on those things that are on sale. So we appreciate Billy. We have an affiliate program with Billy, so some of those purchases will go to our Just Two Dads effort here as well. So we're grateful for him for that. And remember, if you have a situation, you're seeing somebody, I always say empathy and love is always more important, almost more important now than ever before. If you see somebody with a situation that you don't quite understand, don't be judgmental, be curious, give people the benefit of the doubt, be more empathetic as opposed to being judgmental. I think that's make the world a better place. Also, look at the world through the lenses of love. Love always makes the world seem like a better place. Because you come from a better place when you look at the lenses of love. So with that, I'm going to throw it over to you, Shawn, to your two cents, wrap us out.
I want to, again, thank everybody for taking the time to tune in. Everyone that's joined us on Facebook today. Taniqua, pleasure to meet you. Robert, good to see you and have you with us. And again, anybody else that's catching us after the fact on any podcast platform, thank you. Make sure you go to our YouTube channel and take a look at the episodes that are there. They're all loaded there, all 13 after today. And at the same time, like, subscribe, and then do share. And if you can think of topics or anything that you want to hear about, make sure that you let us know, because it's our show in the sense that we're here hosting it. We created it, but we've done that for you. So we want to make sure that we're adding value to, your time. None of us are going to be any younger, as young as we were when I began this sentence. So we want to make sure that the time that we take is one that adds value to your time. So with that said, try and ask more questions, make less statements, be more childlike, less childish, and know that we each have value. Know that everybody needs to be seen, everybody needs to be heard, everybody needs to be loved. I want to thank the women in my life without whom I would not be. That is my amazing mom, Jan, and my wife, Laura. And then we also want to let you know, going into the new year, we're going to be doing a handful of things that are designed around, making the world a better place and making men the best men that they can possibly be. So stay tuned for that. And we're going to be sharing that in the weeks ahead, especially as we wind down this year, which we're blessed to have seen another despite all the challenges. And wherever you are, live or after the fact, we love you.
Thank you, everybody.